It's 12 noon in London, 7 a.m. in Philadelphia, and around the world, it's time for Live Aid. 16 hours of live music in aid of famine relief in Africa. Wembley welcomes their Royal Highnesses, the Prince and Princess of Wales. It wasn't a concert, it wasn't a festival. It was a day when music seemed, just for a moment, to rule the world. Under the passionate leadership of Bob Geldof, attention was drawn to the famine in Ethiopia. Virtually all of the biggest superstars of the time selflessly gave their best on that warm July 13, 1985, in both Wembley Stadium in London and JFK Stadium in Philadelphia. Two locations, around 161,484 attendees, over 75 artists, 68 performances, 180 songs, 16 hours of live television via satellite, 1.9 billion viewers. And one goal, to expose human injustice and poverty through music, and to raise as much money as possible to fight them. How that warm July day unfolded 40 years ago, and whether Live Aid truly changed the world, is what we'll be exploring today. Welcome to We're Only in It for the Music's special, 40 Years of Live Aid. Oh, and for once, we won't be talking about the charity single Do They Know It's Christmas by Band Aid. Even though, admittedly, that time of year is just around the corner again. And while it was all about life music, Live Aid also lived on through 3 songs that traveled the world. The aforementioned Christmas single, Do They Know It's Christmas? Which, as I said, we're not going to discuss. Its American counterpart, We Are the World by USA for Africa. And of course, Dancing in the Street, the duet by David Bowie and Mick Jagger, complete with its unforgettable music video.
1985 brought us the gayest music video of all time. That happened, and we all let it happen.
Hello, and welcome to a new episode of We're Only in It for the Music, a brand new YouTube series that takes you on a musical journey through videos about pop, rock, jazz, blues, soul, and funk. In other words, from ABBA to Zappa and everything in between. If you're enjoying this series, don't forget to click like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you'll always be the first to know when a new episode drops. But enough of that. Never mind the bollocks, we're only in it for the music. Of course, 20 years after the original 1985 Live Aid benefit concert, the event was reprised in 2005. Apparently, the injustice of those 2 intervening decades had not yet been eradicated. We saw an updated version in the form of Live Aid. 2 years later came Life Earth, initiated by climate activist and former U.S. Vice President Al Gore. But aside from those 2 events, nothing since has matched the scale or cultural impact of Live Aid 85. A 2025 edition would have made sense, yet 40 years on, both Wembley and JFK Stadium remain conspicuously silent. Geldof told NME, "You need rock and roll as a creature of a social, economic, and technological movement. I think the rock and roll age is over." Cynical words from a former world saver, perhaps. But maybe Geldof has a point. In 1985, there were far fewer media channels, far less bubble thinking, and therefore more room for one massive shared cultural moment. Back then, the world's focus was on the famine in Ethiopia, a single cause that united people globally. In today's fragmented landscape, it's far more difficult to create one universal mass event centered on a single urgent issue with the right artistic voices. The world of 1985 had one story, one stage. Today, it has 1,000 channels, 1,000 stories. Yet it was precisely that combination of timing, media, music culture, and urgency that made Live Aid so unique and so irreplaceable. Live Aid was revisited in the form of Live 8 in 2005, another major success and one with genuine cultural resonance. We'll explore that edition in detail in a separate special. When I think back on that specific event, one question immediately comes to mind. The same one I asked myself back then. How much hunger must Africa endure before Pink Floyd gets back together? Oh boy, I sound just as cynical as Bob Geldof. Still, the fact remains, Life Aid 85 cannot be reproduced in the world we live in today. And that's precisely what makes the event historically so important. The day music changed the world. Indeed. At exactly 12:01, the first guitar chords of Rockin' All Over the World rang out. Status Quo couldn't have chosen a more fitting opening song, as 1.9 billion people around the globe watched via satellite, alongside the 72,000 lucky ones who had managed to get a ticket for Wembley. A marathon concert with perhaps the best lineup ever assembled up to that point. The moment this Creedence classic echoed through the stadium, the entire world seemed tuned in to the same frequency. I too was glued to the TV, though at the time I was still sitting in my baby chair. Wembley offered an unbroken chain of performances by top-tier artists. Let's highlight a few essential moments. Genesis drummer and singer Phil Collins was at the height of his fame in '85 and performed not only an intimate set with Sting and Branford Marsalis, but later boarded the Concorde to Philadelphia to drum for Eric Clapton and later joined Led Zeppelin's reunion set. How that went? We'll get to that in a moment. Collins' Concorde crossing became a symbol of the impossible ambition of the 1980s, performing twice in one day on opposite sides of the Atlantic. It was pure megalomania, but also pure dedication. Some saw it as an ego-boosting stunt. Yet anyone who knows Collins' work ethic from the '80s could argue he was simply a man deeply committed to the cause. Another artist often accused of ego-tripping is none other than Bono of U2. Around 1985, the band stood on the brink of global breakthrough, well aware that Wembley was their chance to establish themselves as the moral conscience of rock. Bono and company had always been politically engaged, and he would continue to be an activist for decades to come. During a 12-minute performance of Bad, Bono climbed down from the stage to embrace and dance with a woman he had pulled from the crowd, showing a global audience the personal connection he could forge with fans. The performance became a pivotal moment in the band's career. The Guardian later cited Life Aid as the event that made U2 world stars, listing their set among the 50 key moments in rock history. Bono later recalled that the move was spontaneous, and that he soon realized while dancing that he couldn't make it back onto the stage. Because of this improvised audience interaction, U2 had to stretch Bad to 12 minutes, leaving no time for the rest of the planned set list. Bono thought he had ruined their shot at a global breakthrough. Nothing could have been further from the truth. The fact that he physically couldn't reach the stage again said it all. There was a literal distance between artist and audience, one that Bono managed to bridge. By 1985, Queen were no longer the dominant force they had been a decade earlier. Commercially still successful, but creatively, according to many, past their peak. Yet from the moment Freddie Mercury walked onto that stage, it was nothing but pure charisma. Queen delivered a compact but sublime set filled with old and new triumphs. After the ballad section of their magnum opus Bohemian Rhapsody, the band launched into Radio Gaga, and Mercury transformed the Wembley crowd into an orchestra that he conducted with total command. 72,000 people clapped and sang in unison, and even through the TV screen, the song radiated as a moment of total unity, a planetary togetherness. If Bono managed to bridge the gap between artist and audience, Freddie Mercury obliterated it entirely. "We Are the Champions" echoed through Wembley. The stadium became the center of the earth, and Freddie its conductor. Queen came, Queen saw, and Queen conquered. In 1985, David Bowie found himself in a similar position as Queen, commercially successful thanks to his album Let's Dance, but creatively adrift. Yet once again, his charisma proved boundless. His 1977 classic Heroes gained a whole new emotional depth that day, thanks in part to the BBC's montage of footage from Ethiopia that accompanied it, the very heart of Life Aid. Music historian Peg note that it wasn't until Bowie's Life Aid performance that Heroes was finally recognized as a true classic. Biographer David Buckley even called it the best version of Heroes Bowie ever sang. The day in London concluded with that charity single we said we wouldn't talk about. It was fitting to see all the artists gathered together on one stage, though hearing a Christmas song in the middle of summer still felt just a little odd.
This is your Woodstock, and it's long overdue.
Across the Atlantic, Joan Baez opened the day at JFK Stadium with the words, "This is your Woodstock, and it's long overdue." With that single sentence, she placed Life Aid directly in the lineage of the protest generation of the 1960s. In just a few words, Joan Baez bridged two eras, from protest to compassion. Mick Jagger and Tina Turner delivered pure musical fireworks. The chemistry was electric. Their set brought the first real surge of sexual energy to the day's stage. It was also the moment when American showmanship peaked, exuberant, larger than life. A celebration of liberation through rock and roll, in sharp contrast to the more serious tone of many British acts. Where Wembley moved hearts, Philadelphia exploded. The day in the U.S. also concluded symbolically, with the artists who had participated in USA for Africa's We Are the World. Musically, Life Aid was a success across the board, and politicians spoke of how pop music had demonstrated moral leadership. You could call it a euphoric event that made the world a better place. But in reality, Life Aid also revealed a darker side. Throughout the day, people could call in to donate, and the phone lines were overwhelmed as viewers around the world gave money en masse. Later, it emerged that part of the funds, funneled through corrupt Ethiopian officials or middlemen, never reached those in need, instead being diverted to weapons purchases or local warlords. Bob Geldof faced heavy criticism for the naivety of his approach. This remains the central moral question surrounding Life Aid. Do you save lives with music, or do you mainly buy the West a clear conscience? The money saved millions, but it also became entangled in politics. What began as pure aid partly turned into a moral minefield. The lack of diversity in the lineup has also been a recurring point of criticism and debate. The world's biggest acts performed, yet there was a striking shortage of female artists and artists of color. Ironically, there were hardly any performers of African descent, even though Africa was the very reason the event existed. The same was true for Life Aid in 2005. Geldof defended himself at the time by saying he selected artists based on maximum exposure, put a global superstar on stage, and you draw the biggest audience, and thus the most attention for the cause. If you program African artists, you risk losing the crowd and the momentum, which hurts donations. Perhaps Geldof had a point, but a more balanced lineup might have been a far more powerful symbol of connection between two worlds. In addition, the logistics, especially in Philadelphia, were often far from smooth, with messy transitions between acts. What was meant to be the highlight of the American concert, the Led Zeppelin reunion, turned into an underwhelming, disorganized performance, with blaming fingers pointed at Phil Collins behind the drums. The final performance before We Are the World was by Bob Dylan. During his set, Dylan remarked, "I hope some of the money, maybe they can use some of it to pay the mortgages of the American farmers."
You know what? I just like to say, I hope that some of the money that's raised for all the people in Africa, maybe they could just take a little bit of it, maybe 1 or 2 million, maybe, and use it, say, to pay the mortgages on some of the farms that the farmers here owe to the banks.
The comment hit a sour note. The concert was about famine in Africa, not about mortgage debts in the U.S. While his remark would later inspire Farm Aid with Willie Nelson and Neil Young among others, at that moment it felt tone-deaf, inappropriate, and misplaced in the context of Life Aid. Governments, politicians, and the media eagerly used Life Aid as a way to appear progressive, without truly changing any policy. It also became a PR spectacle for television networks and artists alike. Some critics described it as charity as spectacle, moral satisfaction instead of structural change. Interestingly, some artists who didn't perform, like Prince, Talking Heads, and Bruce Springsteen, were later praised for refusing to join the hype, questioning its sincerity. Behind the scenes, there were plenty of disputes about set times, running orders, and who would get the primetime slot. Where idealism and ego meet, friction arises. And Life Aid certainly had its share of big egos. Life Aid then carried a complex and perhaps unpredictable legacy. After 1985, a new phenomenon emerged: charity culture in pop music. Positive on one hand, but it also led to audience fatigue. Another song, another campaign, another dose of guilt. And who were these super rich stars to tell ordinary people that we needed to take action? The question lingered. Can music still genuinely help? Or has it become inseparable from marketing? Because without marketing, there's no exposure. And without exposure, no donations. After Life Aid, no benefit could ever be innocent again. It had set the bar so high that no one could reach it, not even music itself. As an event and as a movement for a better world, in this case, famine relief in Africa, Life Aid was full of contradictions. But we shouldn't forget that the entire operation was enormous and incredibly complex. And where work is done, mistakes are made. That's what also made Life Aid human, just like you and me. Life Aid succeeded, for the first time in history, in connecting the world simultaneously through music. In 1969, Woodstock achieved that on a local scale. But if you weren't there, you had to wait for the concert movie to understand what it had been like. Now you were witnessing something monumental live. 1.9 billion viewers, nearly 40% of the world's population at the time, shared a single moment of collective empathy. Life Aid proved that pop culture could carry moral weight. Musicians could be more than entertainers. They could be catalysts for compassion. That day shifted the moral compass of an entire generation. Donating to charity became mainstream, a social reflex. For one day, it felt like music could save the world. And maybe it did, if only within ourselves. Life Aid could change the world for one day, but the world itself didn't change. The famine in Ethiopia wasn't solved by the concert. The problem was simply too vast and too complex. Some of the aid never reached its destination. Conflicts persisted. The political and economic structures that caused famine remained intact. The balance of power between the West and Africa didn't shift. If anything, critics labeled it charity colonialism. After the moral high point came no lasting transformation, but rather a wave of self-satisfaction. The cameras rolled for a day, but the world kept turning. The hunger remained. The systems endured. Only the conscience felt lighter. But the world of music did change because of Life Aid. Within music culture, it was a watershed moment. The end of the classic rock god era. Artists became public figures with social meaning. Life Aid demonstrated the power of television and music as a global language, the blueprint for MTV and the era of worldwide music experience. It laid the foundation for later event culture. From Life Aid in 2005 to benefit live streams during the COVID pandemic. It also changed the way artists saw themselves. More responsibility, but also more self-promotion through causes. After Life Aid, music could no longer pretend it was just music. It had seen its own power and its own limits. Perhaps the most enduring transformation Life Aid sparked was the least measurable one. Millions of people were moved that day, not necessarily by the famine images, but by a sense of shared humanity. For many viewers, Life Aid was the first time they felt part of something truly global. You value what you have more consciously when you realize how much worse others have it. Alongside the nightly news, Life Aid became a catalyst for empathy, a collective memory, a moral anchor that still echoes in pop culture today. Maybe Life Aid didn't change the map of the world, but it changed the inside of millions of people. And sometimes, that's exactly how change begins. On July 13, 1985, it briefly seemed possible that a song, a stage, and a handful of chords could save the world. 40 years later, we know better, and yet we still long for that feeling. Maybe Life Aid didn't change the world forever, but it reminded us that the world can change. And that was Life Aid 1985. Next time, we'll take a look at its successor, Life 8, from 2005. What are your memories of that warm July day? Did you experience the concert firsthand? On TV? Or were you one of the lucky ones in London or Philly? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. You can listen to all the music featured on this channel through the official Spotify playlist. And check out the Facebook and Instagram pages for all the latest updates. Because I will follow you, if you follow me. You'll find all the links down below in the description. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. And in the meantime, drop the needle, press play. And remember, we're only in it for the music.